Welcome to the September 19th meeting of the Rotary Club of Jamestown. Everybody found their way to our new room this week, so good to see everyone. Please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance, singing the national anthem, and repeating the four-way test. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Oh, stay and you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleam, whose bright stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight for the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the months were singing air, came through the night, and our flag was still there. Oh, save us that star-spangled banner yet wave, for the land of the free and the hope of the brave. Let's repeat the four-way test. Are the things we think, say, or do, is it the truth? Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Fair to all concerned. Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Our invocation today is done by Becky Robbins.
Before I talk about the invocations about autumn, but just to make you feel better, somebody today said, rain in the fall, no winter at all. So let's hope. So this is a prayer from Notre Dame. It's the prayer for the beginning of autumn. O God of creation, you have blessed us with the changing of the seasons. As we welcome the autumn months, may the earlier setting of the sun remind us to take time to rest. May the brilliant colors of the leaves remind us of the wonder of your creation. May the steam of our breath in the cool air remind us that it is you who give us the breath of life. May the harvest from the fields remind us of the abundance we have been given and the bounty we are to share with others. May the dying of summer spirit remind us of your great promise that death is temporary and life is eternal. We praise you for your goodness forever and ever. Amen.
Thank you, Becky. Please welcome President-elect Ruth Lundeen to announce our visiting Rotarians and guests.
Thank you, John. And great to see so many people here today. We want to welcome Melissa Seavey, who is from the Heritage, and she is a guest of Chris Anderson.
Announcements. Our Rotary Yours recorder today is Joel Kiefer. Many thanks to you and the Communications Committee for all you do to help keep this club informed. And any additional announcements from committee chairs?
Well, I have been asked to announce that that there is a District 7090 web talk this Wednesday, September 21st from 7 to 8 p.m. And it's going to, among other people, feature our own Diana Meckley talking about our club's literacy programs. So we encourage you to log on, and I sent out a club runner which has the link with how you can register so you can attend and listen to the program. There are 4 clubs talking about their literacy campaigns. And Diana also asked me to announce that she's looking for some photographs, good photographs. So if you have any photographs of Literacy Committee's programs, activities, please get them to Diana. Do you need help getting them uploaded or whatever needs to happen? Okay. Very good. Also, on this Wednesday at 3 p.m., there's a hybrid meeting of the DEI committee. So the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee will be meeting at 3 p.m., either at CRCF or online.
Hello, social committee again. Woo, we're back. So what do we have coming up? October 10th, we're going to do our Oktoberfest. We did it last year. We had a great turnout. It's at Southern Tier Brewing. It will be from 5 to 8 o'clock. Please bring your families. Families had a really good time, hoping for great weather again. Randy Graham's going to do the music for us. We're hoping to do some cookie decorating for the kids and have some fun events for everybody. It's $25 a person, $5 for kids. We'll have online enrollment that's going to be put out today at some point, as long as I give Chris all the information. And yeah, we're looking forward to having people there. We had a great turnout last year. With the $25, you get the traditional Oktoberfest food plus a couple of adult beverages. So please come and enjoy. I'll be nagging for every week until the event. Thank you.
Also back this October is Ride for Polio. And we're still trying to hammer out the details with Volker and AM Club, but shooting for probably the 22nd at this point, since our highway cleanup's on the 15th. About a 20-mile ride. Everybody's invited. It's not going to be super difficult. Chris and I did it last year. We survived. We're still here, and we said we'd do it again. So look for more details.
Thank you. As Kevin mentioned, highway cleanup's going to be October 15th. Meet at the park and ride at 8:30. We'll send a sign-up list around, and we'll have a list next week if you want to sign up here in person. So thank you, everybody. Please get your tickets ready for the 50-50. Greg Jones.
In my hand, I have tickets, and this hand I have $36. This hand I have 2 things. I have $36 for the winner, and I have a winning ticket. And since Ruth is standing here, I cannot pick the more honest person to pull out the winning ticket. So you go for the go for it right there. Turn it up, right up for hers.
So 764 383.
383. Sally.
Sally Martinez.
Sally Martinez. Give a hand for our Sergeant at Arms, Doug Conroe.
Happy rain day, happy rain day. That's good. Been a little quiet in the newspaper again. I told you we need a couple weeks here. Got to get going. However, the Board of Public Utilities was rated number 7 in Business First Healthy Workplaces. Really? In the region.
Oh, okay. We were #1 for small organizations in Western New York. So
Yep, so great, came in. So, and that about does the newspaper. Michael, it's good to see you again. It's been a while. Okay, that's good because I was talking to Michael and you don't want to know the history here. It were good days years ago. Today was a somber day in the United Kingdom and elsewhere in the world. On this date, there was also a somewhat somber date a couple hundred years ago. back in 1796 in this country. So Jim Smith, what do you think the somber day was in 1796 on this date in history? It's nice of your table to, oh, it's nice. Wrong. He died on December 14th, 1799. So it was nice of your table to pony up. But George Washington did on this date give his farewell address as President of the United States. Close but no cigar. Close but no cigar. And we always try to work in Rotarian magazine now that President Kevin started us down this path. It's a good way. So what did President of Rotary, Jennifer, say that the 2 lessons learned from her recent trip to Guatemala were? Let's see, who reads that magazine faithfully? Chris Anderson reads it faithfully. Greg Jones reads. Can't hear me. Huh? What did President Jennifer say were the 2 lessons learned from her recent trip to Guatemala? Try again. Okay, little stretch here. It was a lesson for local Rotary clubs because you rely on the ground expertise when you're working on projects. And sometimes you have to take uncomfortable chances to reach your important goals. That was her message to Rotary International in this month's magazine column. Any happy bucks, do you think, President?
We're always happy. Happy bucks. Come on up.
So I, along with my wife, went to, what's the name of that school? Syracuse. I think it starts with S and has an orange. And they won the game in the last 7 seconds. So Syracuse is now 3-0, which I call almost perfect.
I have 2 happy bucks. One is to share with you that United Way is kicking off our 2022 fundraising campaign on Thursday, September 22nd. You see what I did there? 2022 campaign. You're all invited. If you are a supporter of United Way, if you're a donor, if you volunteer, if you receive funding, if you're on the board of an organization that receives funding, for 9 of them, you can come to the kickoff. It is at 4:30 on Thursday at the YWCA Lake Lodge. My second happy buck is for just a quick announcement. The Jamestown Young Professionals Networking Group is relaunching. It's going to be next Wednesday, the 28th. At United Way, we're sort of serving as an initial organizing and coordinating function for that. So if you have any young professionals in your life that are working for you, it's a great chance for them to meet each other and make connections in the community. It hasn't met since, I think, pre-COVID, and a lot of reasons for that, but we felt like it was an important thing to get started again. So please share that information. You can find out about it on Facebook. There's an event page. Check your social media. You'll probably see something about it, but technically there's not really an age for it. Depends on who you talk to. So before, Lillian May would come to the events. Clearly she is a young professional in this community. But really, like, it's sort of at 40 and under, but it really is open to anyone who wants to really network and meet new people in the community. So tell your friends.
My happy buck is for meeting in this room. Not only are the chairs much more comfortable, but the Pledge of Allegiance of the Star Spangled Banner was the best I have heard in a long time. So I make a motion that we always try to get here.
So this last weekend, my youngest daughter flew up from Florida and spent 3 days with us, which was super. Well, actually, she spent 1 day with us and 2 days with friends, but it was still great to see her. And she announced that Lisa and I will likely be grandparents. So that's good.
I just got one happy buck. Just want to say thank you to Irene and Kevin and everybody that worked on updating the membership application. So we have a new form with additional information for potential new members. So that'll be nice to have. And then at some point, Jim, we will be back in this room. They said that when they start serving lunch over there, then we'll be back here full time. So they didn't give me a date yet, but at some point in the future, we'll be back.
John, I have a happy buck. Did you hear me?
Somebody online?
Yeah. Sherry, can you hear me? I don't know if you can hear me or not.
Yeah, go ahead, Sherry.
I'm unmuted. I know that. I have two happy bucks actually. I put in $10, but one was for time I got to spend with Yoa when I drove him up to Niagara Falls on Saturday. So that was nice to get caught up with him. If you haven't met him or spent time with him yet, please see if we can connect. I know Chris has his information and I do as well. And then my second happy buck is for the birth of my 5th granddaughter. Grace Elizabeth was born yesterday morning at about 3:50, and they just made it to the hospital and we're thankful that they did. So those are my happy bucks. Thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you. It is my pleasure to welcome Dan Heizenrader from the program committee to introduce our speakers.
Good morning. So our speakers today are Michael and Sarah Bigney of Crown Street Roasting. I hope you're familiar with Crown Street Roasting. So Michael was born and raised in Bemis, and Sarah from Kane, Pennsylvania. They met each other in the restaurant industry where they both worked, but they both went to college for different areas of focus, interestingly. Michael for graphic and media design, and Sarah for health information management. They've been together for 9 years, and Crown Street Roasting opened its doors in 2017. If you're counting, that means this year was the 5-year anniversary. Crown Street is a coffee roastery and specialty coffee shop and cafe. And their mission is to provide unparalleled customer experience matched with superior coffee and culinary quality in a place that fosters gratefulness, community, ideas, growth, and progression. And I know I get all those feelings when I set foot in the door. So I think you're doing a great job. Please come and share your story. Thanks.
Hello, everybody. I'm Michael, my wife Sarah. Okay, sorry about that. First time we're here. Yeah, I'm Michael Bigney. This is my wife Sarah. We started Crown Street Roasting Company out of our garage probably about 7 years ago. I just picked up coffee roasting as a hobby, and never really intended to make that a business, but kind of life just kind of moves in different directions, and timing kind of aligned, and we decided to kind of push in all the chips and go for it, and I'm very glad we did.
So we weren't really sure exactly what side you wanted to hear about, because we can talk to you about business and what that has been for us, or we can talk to you about coffee and what that is, or what it is really that we do. I know there's a lot of interest in that. And coffee, okay, all right, great. You know exactly what avenue we're going here. So Michael is our coffee roaster or a roast master. And that's really how Crown Street started. He was looking for a hobby, something to do. And so we read a bunch of books, and we actually tried first a brew beer kit at home. And it was probably about this time, maybe a little bit later, when we had started, or I should say Michael, when Michael had started to brew beer. And apparently you need a special type of yeast for colder temperatures, all the things. Very scientific. So is coffee, but beer, very scientific. And so the batch did not turn out well. And we decided we don't actually really even drink that much beer, so this maybe isn't the hobby for us. And so Michael did a bunch of reading, and he stumbled upon coffee roasting. And it was something that we could start fairly easily and get almost an immediate return to see how it went. We didn't have to wait for the brew process to sit. And so Michael started on the side of our grill in our garage. It had like a side burner. And so he'd every day stand out there with a pot and a spoon. We actually have the wooden spoon frame. We should probably put that out in the cafe somewhere. But so he would just stir constantly. And then we upgraded to a little popcorn air popper. And then you upgraded to
like a rotisserie style kind of roaster. Almost looks like a little microwave, or like a toaster oven. But it has like a little rotisserie in the center of that. And actually roasted on that for quite a bit. Did a couple of craft shows with that, and realized once I got quite a few orders that roasting 12 hours a day through the weekend wasn't sustainable for even craft shows. So it was at that point where, you know, we kind of had to sit down and figure out where this was going to go.
So coffee grows on a tree or a bush. We call it a coffee tree. And each branch produces white flowers, and they're very fragrant, very sweet smelling. But when the flowers fall off of the branch, they now produces a cherry. And so they start green, and they kind of look and are the same size as a grape. And as they ripen, they turn to a really deep crimson red color. And that's when the coffee cherry is ripe, and it's plucked or picked from the coffee branch. So one coffee tree produces hundreds of coffee cherries at its maturity. So inside the coffee cherry, I'm going to dissect it just like I would have. So if you have a grape in front of you and you peel the skin, just the skin off of a grape, you'll have the mucilage or the fruit part. And so the coffee cherry is exactly like that. It has a hard outer skin that if you take off, there's a fruit there. The fruit is very sweet tasting as well. I don't know how to compare it to any. It doesn't taste like a grape. It's its own thing, but it is like a sweet tasting fruit. And inside of that is the bean or the coffee seed. And so after all of the mucilage or all of the fruit is taken off, that is what we get that you know as the coffee bean. Although when we get it as the roaster, it is green, and it kind of smells more earthy, like grass or like hay. And then it goes through the roasting process. And the roasting process is just adding heat to it in different intervals. Do you want to talk about the map of that?
Yeah, sure. So I guess coffee roasting from a fundamental standpoint needs movement and heat. And then you can get extremely scientific. I have a mapping, a computer program that is linked to my roaster, which shows me what's going on inside the roaster with the coffee bean, the temperature over time. And at that point, I make like a roast profile, which allows me to consistently roast that particular coffee the same every time I get it, or close to the same. So when we get the coffee down at our coffee shop, we get big burlap sacks of green or raw coffee. And it's at that point that we roast it, and it's at the level that we sell it or brew it in our coffee shop.
So part of the roast profile that Michael puts together and how he wants the coffee to taste. So all of our coffee comes from, well, we order it from as a single origin. And if you've been into our coffee shop, most of what we have is a single origin coffee. And what that means is it's coming from one single country. You can also have micro lots, which means it's coffee from a very specific lot on a very specific farm. So there's all sorts of ways that we can get it, but everything we order is single origin. So from one specific country or multiple countries. And then a blend is after we roast it or before we roast it, we blend multiple or different several countries of coffees together to create a certain flavor profile. And Michael's roast profile, or how he does that, this is how we explain it. So you could drink the same coffee, the same origin from Crown Street, from Stedman, from Dollhouse, from Starbucks. You could drink the same exact coffee bean, but it will taste different based on several reasons. But the roast profile is one of the things that will make it taste different. And that would be like, if we ask every single one of you, how do you get to the high school from here? Each of you would give us slightly different directions, right? Turn on this street, walk 2 blocks, maybe walk 3 blocks. Everyone would be a little bit different. So that is the roast profile that Michael is creating. When do I turn up heat? When do I turn down heat? How long do I leave it here? All of those variables are what he's creating as our roast profile, or the mapping of how we get that coffee to taste consistently the same. Does that make sense? Anything else? Did that make sense to you? Yeah. Okay.
Also, too, a lot of what works for us, if you guys have questions, then we can direct answers specifically to that. Since we kind of gave you like a base knowledge of kind of what we're doing down there, we encourage you to ask questions, because that might kind of bring us into a different direction, depending on how much time is.
So where does your coffee originate from? You say different areas, but what areas does it originate from?
Sure. So right now, currently, the coffee that I brought in today is from Ethiopia. It's from the Guji Sidama region of Ethiopia. We have some from Costa Rica, Brazil, Colombia, Honduras, Java, which is a lot of people associate Java with a cup of coffee, but it's actually a country in Indonesia. So those are some of the countries that we're roasting right now, and everything's seasonal too. So like different countries throughout the year have different harvest periods. So like if you come in at one point and you're like, and I really like that Peru or whatever, and we don't have it, it's usually because it's not in season. So we're kind of moving through different harvest periods, kind of like the grape belt up here, I guess, you know, they have a harvest season and then there's winter.
So one of the advantages of having the mic for the people who ask questions is I can ask a question.
Oh, yeah. Yes, yes.
So I've often wondered, so you mentioned Java, the bean. Well, would that always be roasted like to a medium dark, or could you take that bean and sometimes make it a mild and sometimes make it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So you can roast it pretty much any roast degree that you want. When I get a new coffee from Java, say a different harvest season, I'll take the profile that I had once created for my previous Java as kind of a baseline, and I'll
make certain little adjustments until I get it where it tastes where, I guess, kind of where I want it. It is honestly what's happening. And then at that point, I'll save that profile and continue to roast that coffee in that manner. So I'll use past data to kind of incorporate new seasonal offerings. That answers the question.
I think a lot of people here are probably similar to me that couldn't start the day without it. I call it CPR and cup. I like to cook, and I'm always interested in how an ingredient can be used in other recipes. And somebody recently told me about beef marinated in strong coffee, which seemed really weird to me. But how can coffee be used in other recipes? What other places can we find it?
Or sorry.
So we were in collaboration with Jamestown Brewing Company before they had went out to collaborate on a stout, on a coffee stout. That just never materialized, but that's often used in like brewing, beer brewing. Yeah, meat rubs. There's yeah, ice cream. Yeah, so even the grounds, if it's ground really fine, and a powder that can be incorporated into different recipes, or even the brewed liquid, again, marinating in that, you know, the chemical breakdown of whatever protein you put in that as well. So, and actually, Sarah had made some coffee soap, so she used some of the grounds and some soap that was really great because the exfoliating factor of coffee.
So back to the beans. How do you get the beans? You can't just go to Jamestown Coffee Supply and buy a big stack of green coffee beans, right?
So, and sorry if that was part of your question in the back, sir. So we use a broker that has a lot of different industry professionals that will travel to different origins and source the best possible bean that they can get. And the broker has a big storage facility. The one that we use has 3. There's one in New York, there's one down in Florida, and there's one in the Midwest as well. But we work with a coffee trader who's trained to know how to look for defects and things of that nature. So we work with them to see what seasonal offerings are available. We order samples, we roast them, or we can have them roast them, taste them, and figure out which ones we want to kind of carry.
I've always wanted to ask this question. It was a very sad day in our household when our doctor said, you know, you need to adjust your consumption of coffee to decaf. So how do we get decaf coffee in the process?
Yeah, that's a great question. So decaf coffee is it's the exact same coffee bean as regular coffee beans, but it goes through a decaffeination process where they actually soak the coffee in water and strip out all of its ingredients, including caffeine, and then they'll actually infuse all of that back in, with the exception of the caffeine.
So there are 2 ways that coffee is decaffeinated. So the water process is what we all should be drinking, or if you want to have decaffeinated coffee. The other process is through a chemical process where they're actually using chemicals to extract the caffeine. But it happens through a very scientific, like reverse osmosis. So they're soaking all the coffee beans, extracting everything out of the coffee bean, and then they separate the caffeine from all of the other nutrients or flavors, and then they re-soak the coffee beans and absorb just the nutrients or flavors that are left.
Is there still a roasting step that you have with that coffee bean when you get it?
Yes. Yep. So we still get it raw, or we call it green beans that we get. And you can tell there's a big difference between a caffeinated green bean and a decaffeinated green bean. The decaffeinated technically isn't green, it's almost like brown, shriveled up looking, compared to a green roasted or unroasted coffee bean. So there's a difference, but then yeah, the same roast.
All the good stuff is gone. It's all shriveled up.
That's right. Well, so in decaf, there still is a small trace amount of caffeine left in there. But that process that the bean goes through is very taxing on the bean. So to roast that, you almost have to be gentle and kind of coddle with it, just because it has been through so much. But also those companies too, they'll take the caffeine and resell that to like energy drink companies. So that caffeine is still being used, just not in that particular product. Oh, here's a great example. And we have decaf on drip every single day that can come down. But I have a friend that owned a restaurant up in Chautauqua, classically trained chef, reached out because he wanted some coffee for after service. And I was kind of going through the list of what we had available, the seasonal offerings. And I had said, well, what about decaf? Have you thought about that? And he kind of was like, decaf. So I was like, okay, let me grab a couple samples and I'll come up. So I brewed a pot of decaf and a pot of, at the time it was a Nicaraguan single origin, and brought it up there and brewed some for him, but I didn't label them. And he's like, man, I really like this one. And I was like, well, that's my decaf. And he's like, oh, wow. So as a testament to how decaf can taste, it's certainly come a long way. So I encourage you to try our decaf if you have the opportunity. Yeah.
I have a question about a couple questions actually. But a lot of people drink coffee because they like the flavor, and a lot of people drink the coffee because they like the caffeine alertness that comes with it. More than that, do all coffee beans have the same caffeine? Is it a product of the roast? That's one question. The other question, I'm sure we'd all like to know how you came up with the name Crown Street.
Sure, absolutely. So the first part of that caffeine, I just read this morning. So funny that you asked that. The entire plant has caffeine, and that's used to deter insects and things away from the plant. That's a chemical within the plant. And I thought that was really interesting. Roasting the coffee darker, like a darker roast will, so roasting dark, you're roasting out a lot of different elements, one of them being caffeine. So traditionally dark roasted coffee doesn't have as much caffeine as like a light roast, which a lot of people, that's a misconception, that dark roasted coffee is stronger. But yeah, so that does change with the roast process. The second part of that, Crown Street Roasting Company. So my wife and I live on Crown Street in Jamestown, and since we started roasting out of the garage there, that was kind of paying homage to where we started and our roots and Crown Street Roasting Company. It's funny because a lot of people ask that and they have some really elaborate stories, and we're like, actually, it's not really. It's just it's where we live. So I'm glad you asked that.
It's a quick question. Along the lines of flavor profiles, we had a great experience at an unknown coffee place in Erie, a tasting, and they started with all the profiles of the beans from different regions of the world. And I wondered if you all considered doing something like that. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, we actually, Mr. Heitzenreiter here can testify to our Coffee 101 class that we offered, where we have, I think, 5 or 6 different coffees. We all taste it together. We all write down what we're tasting, and kind of go over like a general coffee education class, which is maybe similar to what you did. There's different levels of that, I guess, as far as like cupping is is a brew method that is used kind of on a worldly scale, where there's a lot of slurping and mainly to look for defects and things of that nature. We haven't really offered one of those, but possibly in the future as like maybe a secondary to our Coffee 101. But
thank you for your presentation, but thank you for being here.
thank you.
David took one of my questions, but my second question is, did you experience any, or are you experiencing any supply chain problems?
It's a very, very good and a very real question, because yes, we are. It's all the way from like supply, like cups and lids and things along like those types of supplies. But we've been out of our chai for a couple of months now. We don't make our chai in-house. Another company makes that. And from a manufacturing standpoint, they've been out, and we've been trying to get answers as far as, you know, when that's going to be available. And they're uncertain with that. So yeah, we're still struggling, I guess, with that. In many different, you know, we'll go through, and so they'll have cups, but then they'll be out of this. So like, it's a hard balance to try to, okay, so now they have it, do we completely stock up? Or it's something that we still battle with.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And another one, the beans in the cherries, you said the pulp of it is sweet. And it's very well caffeine. Is that ever used for anything besides beans?
Yeah, actually, they make jams out of that, just like you would like grape jam. They use the skins and they dry that out, and that they use that as a tea. It's called cascara. I'm not sure if you've heard of that, but yeah, they utilize all parts of that coffee cherry. I would imagine you could, yeah. Yeah, because there's sugars in there, and you can, yeah, for sure. That's interesting.
I had two questions. First, is there a particular way that you do your tasting? I mean, like wine, you swirl it 3 times and then smell it. But my more serious question is, of course, we see a lot of coffees with different flavors, or French vanilla or whatever. And I assume those are additives. And do you make those kinds of coffees as well?
Sure. Yes, those are all additives. We don't add anything. We don't carry any flavored coffees. We do have tasting notes on our bags of coffee, though, and those are naturally occurring within the coffee itself, depending on how the coffee is processed at origin, how it's roasted here in Jamestown. But those natural flavors are just within the coffee bean. And we taste them, slurp the coffee, and I like to chew it, which is kind of weird. But we do a lot of that, and to find relatable terms that people might know to differentiate a coffee from Ethiopia and a coffee from Brazil. Because essentially they're both coffee, but if you pick up a bag of one of them, it's going to be completely different than the other. So that's kind of how we use those tasting notes on our bags. But there are roasters that do flavor coffees with oils and things like that. And that's where you'll get hazelnut, French vanilla, creme brulee, some of those things. So yeah, that happens both ways. And the first part of your question was
Talk about techniques that you use for taste.
Oh, yes. Okay. So which I covered. So usually we do it with like a spoon, like a soup spoon. You get a little bit of coffee, kind of like slurp it, which kind of throws it on the back of your palate and the roof of your mouth. And it actually allows you to kind of taste the aroma, if that makes sense, and taste the liquid, gives you a full experience. I remember at one of our coffee 101s, I encouraged slurping, and there was somebody that was completely against it. But that really gives you an opportunity to really taste kind of what's going on with the coffee.
Also, as you taste coffee, you should drink it hot. You should slurp it. That aerates it and coats your whole palate. And then you should also drink it as it starts to cool down, because your tasting notes will vary the whole like temperature spectrum as you're drinking it. These are all things. We do have a coffee 101 class. I think it's $20 per person. I don't have any currently scheduled, but now that it's fall, I can start getting those on. And we cover all of this stuff, exactly how the plant's grown, all of the different things that contribute to the natural tasting notes of coffee, how to taste it, how to pick out those tasting notes. We talk about the difference of fragrance and aroma, how those are different.
When Dan introduced you, he also shared your mission. I don't remember it word for word, but I remember the word gratefulness was in it. Can you talk about your mission and maybe that gratefulness?
Yes, absolutely. So we're extremely grateful just to be here and to be able to do what we're doing. We're grateful for every customer that comes through our door. We train our employees to have that same outlook on customers, even if they're having a bad day or they don't want to be there, their friends are out on the boat, something like that. So we always remind them, just be grateful for the people that go out of their way to come have coffee with us, because it's not easy to get down there and grab a cup of coffee. You can easily go through Tim Hortons drive-through or shoot over to Starbucks and go through that drive-through and not even leave your car. So the people that take the time and come downtown to grab their coffee, like, treat them like family. Be grateful that they're here, and if it wasn't for them, like we wouldn't be there either. So that's a huge pillar of what we believe in and what we stand for.
Very refreshing.
Thank you, Michael and Sarah, for coming in. I think you guys got more questions than anybody we've had all year. So thank you. One of Rotary's major international programs is to eradicate polio in the world. We're down just a few countries in the world where polio exists. In honor and thanks for your presentation to our Rotary Club today, we will make a donation in your name that we will vaccinate 4 children who will never experience polio in their life. Remember this year's international theme, Imagine Rotary. Thank you, and we are adjourned. Thanks, Ruth. The phone shut off. You went something this. Almost worked. Yeah,